Welcome to Orange County. So delighted to have a meeting so close to my home. So here I am. Anyway, thank you for attending the second of our 2020 State Transportation Improvement Program hearing, commonly known as STIP to all of us. The state law requires us to hold at least 2 hearings, one in the north and the other in the south, before adopting each new STIP. The purpose of the hearing, I guess I'm supposed to tell you, as specified in Government Code Section 14529G, is to reconcile any objections by any county or regional agency to the Caltrans program or Caltrans objections to any regional program. The hearing will also provide an opportunity for each regional agency in Caltrans to explain its proposals and the reasons that the Commission should include the proposal in the STIP. Each commissioner has a copy of the hearing briefing book prepared by staff. It's not a staff recommendation of any kind, it's simply our materials. And it is a compilation of the regional RTIPs and the ITIP presentation into a single format. So the compilation of this magnitude, prepared in a relatively short time, may include some errors, hope not, Teresa, or misinterpretations. Therefore, the compiled information remains subject to updating and correction. So I think what Teresa is saying to all of us is read the fine print, please, before we prepare any official STIP staff recommendations. So we invite everyone, as always, to bring us changes and corrections as soon as possible. So with that, I think we will open up the meeting. And Mitch, did you, our Executive Director of the California Transportation Commission, would you like to add a few words?
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I just want to thank everybody for coming. This has been a little bit easier year in the STIP process than some of the more recent ones. So I just hope we can all appreciate that, and hopefully they'll be just as easy moving forward. Teresa.
Thank you. Just a note, the briefing book that the Commissioner, Chair Inman is referring to can be found in our website. And I invite every region to take a look at what our representation of what your proposal is and bring forward any corrections or changes for us to make sure that we have accurate information before moving into staff recommendations. So the sooner you do it, the better, please. Thank you. The development of the 2020 STIP began with the adoption of the 2020 STIP guidelines and the fund estimate in August 2019. The guidelines set the policy, standards, criteria, and procedures for the development and management of the STIP. The fund estimate sets the funding that is reasonably expected to be available over the STIP period. Per statute, the STIP must be constrained by the levels of funding identified in the fund estimate. The STIP is a 5-year program of capital improvements that per statute must be adopted by the Commission biannually by April 1st in even-numbered years. It is comprised of the Regional Transportation Improvement Programs, the RTIPs, prepared by the regional agency, and the Interregional Transportation Improvement Program, the ITIP, prepared by Caltrans. The 2020 STIP will cover fiscal years 2020 to 2021, 2024 to 2025. The first 3 years of the STIP overlap from the 2018 STIP, and the last 2 years are 2 new years of programming capacity that is added in the new STIP cycle. In addition, each STIP covers portions of a consecutive 4-year county share period. For the 2020 STIP, the first 4 years completes a 4-year county share period, and the last year starts a new one. Per statute, the Commission must program all proposals that fall within the county share period that closes in this cycle, unless it rejects the proposal in its entirety. The 2020 fund estimate identified 3 targets for each region in Caltrans. They are a minimum, total target, and a maximum. As I mentioned earlier, the first 4 years that end in 23-24 of the 2020 STIP completes a 4-year share period. This is reflected in the county summaries as the minimum share target. This means that programming proposals within the level of the county's minimum share must be included in the new STIP. The total target is the formula share distribution for the entire 5-year STIP cycle. This is no minimum or guaranteed or limit on project nominations or project selection. The maximum is the formula distribution based on an estimate of new capacity through the next county share period ending in 27-28. In order for a region to have a project program up to their maximum share amount, other regions must program less than their total target. The 2020 STIP fund estimate identified $569 million in capacity for new STIP programming. Most of the capacity is in the last 2 years of the STIP. We received most of the RTIPs and the ITIP by the deadline of December 15, 2019. 3 counties elected not to submit an RTIP: Colusa, Mariposa, and Tahoe. This was mainly because they were not proposing any new programming. At the front of the hearing book is a summary that compares the RTIPs and the ITIP proposals against the programming capacity levels identified in the fund estimate. In total, the proposed amount for the RTIPs and the ITIP is $525 million. The programming challenges for the 2020 STIP is that proposals for the first 2 years of the STIP period exceeds the capacity available by approximately $130 million. This means that many projects proposed in the first 2 years of the STIP will need to be moved to the last 3 years of the STIP. Also, for every project requesting an advancement, another project must be delayed. In total, there were 41 counties in Caltrans that proposed at or below their total target level. Similarly, there were 18 counties that proposed above their target level, including 12 counties that have advances and therefore have no targets. It should be noted that for these counties with no programming capacity, they still propose programming PPM. Although total proposals are below the available capacity, staff may not recommend programming every project, as some proposals may not be consistent with STIP guidelines. After the STIP hearings, staff will begin preparing a comprehensive recommendation for adoption of the 2020 STIP. The adoption is scheduled for the March meeting. As required by statute, staff will publish staff recommendations no later than 20 days in advance of STIP adoption. Staff recommendations will be based on the proposals in the RTIPs and the ITIP, the capacity identified by the fund estimate, the policies in the STIP guidelines, and any further information that we may receive during and following this hearing. We will continue working with Caltrans and the regions to address any questions or unresolved issues as we develop our staff recommendations, and to make sure we understand regional and interregional priorities and that no one is surprised by what we recommend and why. After this introduction, we will move into the interregional and regional presentations. Caltrans will make a presentation of its ITIP, and each regional agency will have an opportunity to make a presentation regarding its RTIP and comment on the ITIP. Before Caltrans and each of the regions testify, staff will give a brief overview of the proposal, including any issues specific to that proposal. Members of the public wishing to comment should fill out a speaker's card and can comment following Caltrans and regional presentations at the end of the hearing during public comment. Madam Chair, this concludes my remarks, and if there are no questions, we can begin.
Do we have any questions for Teresa? Just one, Teresa, what's the date? So we're going to post at least 20 days prior, so the last date you would post then would be what date?
It's technically the 5th of March, but we're targeting to post our staff recommendations by February 28th.
Okay.
So we have from now until then to develop the staff recommendations.
Okay. Just so everybody has good amount of time. So
Yes.
I appreciate it. So with that, if we don't have any questions, let's move on through our agenda. So Bruce?
We will start with the interregional program, a really quick overview of the ITIP. Madam Chair, this is on page 68 and 70. Caltrans is proposing approximately $52.4 million of new programming, which is $31,000 below their total target of $52.4 million. In addition, although they do not have a minimum target for the first 4 years of the STIP, their proposal results in the entire $52.4 million of net new programming being added in the fourth year. I will not go over every single proposal, as Bruce will go through each one in detail. However, I would like to note a couple of issues with the proposal. 2 of the new rail projects are missing the cost-benefit analysis as required by STIP guidelines. The project study reports or equivalent for 2 of the rail projects do not provide adequate information to determine the purpose and need of the projects, which clearly defines the scope, schedule, and cost. For the Coast Subdivision project, this is a carryover project for the 2018 STIP, with cost increases proposed. There is no clear explanation for the proposed cost increase. The PSR data on June 2019 indicates the improvements may benefit in the future if the capital corridor shifts operations to this line. If this occurs, it will provide significant benefits to the capital corridors. We are still working with the department to get a better scope, timeline, a cost explanation, and the benefit to the intercity rail line, and when this will occur. The Link Union Station, also a new project. The scope of the project is unclear for the STIP funding. Also, the delivery schedule is not consistent with the STIP guidelines. Bruce, take it over.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Madam Chair. Executive Director Weiss. First time I get to say that. Thank you, congratulations. My mic's not up.
There you go. There we go. Okay.
I'm sorry.
They didn't get that. Thank you, Director Weiss. There you go. We got that. So since I mentioned your name, I'll just say I appreciate that that this 2020 calendar year is going to be much easier than the 2019 calendar year for that, your remarks. But Teresa just pointed out a couple of things that we have further explanation to do. So let me just briefly go over the purpose of the ITIP. It is to improve state highways, improve intercity passenger rail, and projects on the interregional movement of people, goods, and vehicles. For our programming capacity, and Teresa brought this up, statewide we had the $635 million. The ITIP share of that, the 25% of the STIP, is $159 million roughly. In the 2018 cycle, the department overprogrammed, and we also used the advanced program element option to advance funding from 2020 cycle into 2018 so we could accelerate project delivery. We were coming off of SB1 and the deprogramming of projects in 2016. We wanted to go all in terms of using our fiscal tools within the ITIP to advance projects, and we did. And at this point, that is why we were in the position of not having all of the revenue we would like to be able to do new projects. So we used $107 million of our capacity, leaving $52 million roughly of available capacity for 2028. So in our proposal, we take forward all of the 2018 ITIP projects and carry them forward into 2018, the ones that have not actually gone to construction, the ones that are still under development. And so that's necessary even if we're going to remove a project, that it still come into 2020 so we can take the action in 2020 to change something. Our first priority, besides bringing that in, is to take care of projects that are carrying forward that have cost increases. And we had 3 of those that used $52 million of capacity, leaving us just $174,000 in available ITIP capacity, which is everyone recognizes is not really a sufficient amount of money to accomplish anything on either the passenger rail or the highway system that will make a significant difference for the interregional system. So we'd initially proposed deprogramming some phases of some projects on highway and other corridors, and so later on I will explain how we address that. So for the 3 projects that have the cost increases, the 101 Eureka Arcata corridor, $20 million, Highway 46, this project will be going to construction coming up in the next fiscal year, and then the 4641Y and the 4641Y in San Luis San Luis Obispo County is one of those that was discussed in earlier STIP hearings, or ITIP hearings rather, as being a project that was characterized as being at risk through our programming actions. But we were not proposing to do any deprogramming of this project. In fact, we were asking for the cost increases to keep that project on track and on schedule. So we utilize that $52 million, leaving the $164,000 available. Normally, we would have had two ITIP hearings in the fall, and the commission wisely, recognizing the need for further public input, held another meeting in Fresno, and that worked out very well to gather quite a lot of input. We received a lot of input. I will take the risk in saying we received more input on this 2020 ITIP than all previous ITIPs combined. I gather with 112 pages of letters and emails coming to us, as well as numerous dozens of speakers, and most all of the speakers, not all of them, because some had very other important points to bring up, but the vast majority of speakers were addressing our deprogramming proposals for Highway 46 and 99, objecting to those, that proposal. We heard that. We worked with those agencies to look for solutions. We had the California State Transportation Agency involved, commission staff involved, the regional agencies themselves, the Caltrans districts, and of course headquarters putting this ITIP together. And we did come to find solutions for the three corridors where we were, or three projects we were proposing to make amendments. And those are that we continue with using ITIP funding for the Antelope Grade, for the PS&E, Plan Specifications and Estimates phase, which is more commonly design, to fully fund that phase with ITIP. This corridor does not currently have regional or local money on it. It is entirely funded through the ITIP. We propose continuing to propose the deprogramming of the right-of-way phase, that we would come back at a future date for either a request of ITIP or some other funding source to keep that project moving forward with the right-of-way. But since design is not completed, it's not really an issue to remove that funding at this time. So we are going to be using this freed up $5.1 million on other projects that I will speak to shortly. The Madera 99 project in Madera County. For that one, we are splitting the funding between savings from Proposition 1B, Highway 99 Bond Program, and the ITIP, so that we fully fund the phase. We'd initially proposed to completely deprogram that phase. It was entirely funded with ITIP. So we are now proposing to split the funding with the 99 bond savings, and we reached that decision in consultation with the region and have their concurrence on that. And the revenue that is separated off from that will be combined with the other revenue to again address new projects. This project is asking for slightly more than what we had before because it requires a contingency. And so there's a small contingency that's included within this total. The same with the Tulare City widening in Tulare County. And the similar circumstances where we did coordinate and consult with the regions to come to a solution. We also had cost savings on the 99 Tegas, also in Tulare County, and we're proposing to redirect those savings to projects that I will address shortly. And then deprogram, next we're going to deprogram a project on the Metro line in Los Angeles and reprogram it at the Union Station, and we'll have folks talking about this later in the presentation for an equal dollar value. And we have the concurrence of LA Metro and the JPA for doing these changes. So we're developing quite a bit of fiscal capacity by redirecting $13 million from one mini-high platform modification. And a mini-high platform is to accommodate some of for ADA purposes and to be able to have passengers easily board the trains in the new configuration of our rail car. And we do have representatives here from our rail division who can speak to both of these projects and then speak to the other issues that Teresa raised. And then similarly, we're redirecting $16 million from another rail project. In the past, we had, as I mentioned, we had proposed removing funding from highway projects to move in to create this capacity, and we're redirecting within that program. So for all the revenue that is available through these actions of approximately $47 million that we now have either through the residual of ITIP balance after cost increases in the various savings and redirections that we have, total $47 million. And so we're proposing 3 new projects to be added to the ITIP or to modify for the coast subdivision that Teresa mentioned to change that to a new form. And again, we have representatives from the rail program who will be able to speak to the specifics of this. But again, we have the concurrence of our partner agencies on this. And it utilizes, taking these 3 actions would utilize all but $31,000 of the ITIP available balance. So the location of the rail projects, as you can see, are distributed around the state, and they do have some urban concentration. Am I doing the highway projects there? Yes, sorry. This is what I get for using the smaller font from here. Okay, thank you, that's good to know. I'm sorry, these are the highway projects, and you can see that they are located primarily in rural areas, which would be what one would expect from the interregional program, that you're connecting the major regions via these projects. On the rail side of the projects, they tend to be more concentrated in the urbanized areas where we're making, improving connections, improving facilities for passenger service, but we also do invest in the interregional portions of those routes. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions or defer until we have future speakers.
Okay, Teresa?
Bruce, so just real quick, what is the plan? You are removing the right-of-way component from the State Route 46, the Antelope grade?
Yes.
So what is the department's plan to complete the corridor? It is a high-priority corridor, and so what is the plan?
So when we have completed the design, and in the next ITIP cycle, this project, if it's ready to request the right-of-way, we would add that back into the considerations. At this time, we can't commit to that phase with the particular funding, but we are essentially, by fully funding the PS&E phase, we are committing to continue the delivery of that project. It's a very costly construction project as well.
Right.
And those funds have not yet been identified.
Right.
So that's either going to have to be through regional, competitive, or ITIP revenue.
Is this a project that would compete in like a trade corridor?
It may.
Okay.
It is a rural corridor, and the truck volumes are rather large for a rural corridor. And of course, it serves the very important agricultural region of the Central Coast, the Salinas Valley, bringing in produce for processing into the Central Valley. And it serves as a tremendously important route for the people in the Central Valley to access opportunities on the coast, including recreation. And also, very importantly, since we've talked about in previous hearings, resiliency and the ability to evacuate people, this is a very critical route for the Central Coast. When you look at the San Luis Obispo area and the number of highway routes leaving it, it is very constrained. And for those of us who had the joy, which I did, of actually being on those highways while I-5 was closed and took 13 hours to drive from Los Angeles to Sacramento, you appreciate those routes, although at the time I did not appreciate the route whatsoever.
So by removing this component, how much would you be delaying the construction of the project?
Presumably, the construction of the project won't be delayed.
Okay.
And we have not yet identified the funding source for construction, and this is typical of the ITIP process. It's not a large amount of money, and I mentioned this at the Northern hearing, that SB1, it stabilized our funding and gave us predictability, whereas in the past it was a wild ride of a roller coaster. But it only adds $27.5 million per year to the ITIP, which is beneficial and helpful. But for these very large projects, it takes multiple years to build them. And we have many projects across the state where we're working on corridors, and you'll hear from our partner agencies on that. And in many of our corridors, we have one last segment to then complete that corridor. But similarly on the rail corridor, we have a lot of things similar to gap closures and capacity to address. And if you'd wished, we could wait later on to hear from our folks from rail
Yes.
to give the regional agencies the opportunity to speak.
Okay, I have several questions for you, Bruce.
Oh.
One, the $52 million and the cost overruns, how do we do better so that we don't have 52 more million in cost overruns as we go forward? So what do we learn from all of those? And, I mean, that's a big number, and that's equal to the other number that you're trying to piece together on the other side. And one could reasonably argue that if historically we need X percent because we're going to have some overruns. I mean, so I think we need to look at that and not just automatically accept that, oh yeah, we needed 52 more million. So I think for all of us, help us to understand, and each project I realize is specific, but I think that's a big number. And
It is a big number, and as you point out, it does have impacts on our capabilities to do other work. This is the appropriate time at the change of the STIP during this phase to do the updates, to update costs. We do this each cycle on the projects. So these have been under development for quite a long time. So we have, from the initial estimates when they first came into the STIP, between when we're like going to construction, now is the time for us to really take a look at what it's going to cost to complete construction. And so these are the cost, these updated estimates do come from those teams and working in collaboration with the partner agencies. We had, for example, on the 101, we had quite a lot of additional environmental work that we didn't anticipate that brought that cost up. And at the hearing we had here, the southern hearing for the ITIP, the region actually came and spoke to that project, particularly in the importance of the project and then also how we got there.
Okay. Okay. Well, I just think we all have to be diligent
Yes.
stewards that 52 million is.
So the way our processes work within the department, the districts or partner agencies just don't submit the cost increase to us and we just accept it. It has to go through our regular process, just as the SHOP projects do, to get evaluated for the validity of the cost increases. And we have the project change request committee, and if it's a substantial amount of money to increase, which these were, then it goes to an executive committee chaired by the chief engineer and the chief financial officer that we go through and work through the details of the necessity for the increase, for many of the increases, and this is true of the ones on Antelope Grade, the actual increase has been decreasing from what the initial ask was on the project, and they've been working diligently to bring that increase to the lowest level they could. But it was unavoidable. We have a lot of very expensive right-of-way in that area due to parallel oil facilities or nearby facilities and privately held land by various large entities that are not always inexpensive to work with.
Okay. Okay. And then just a quick one. On your summary of the ITIP hearings, it felt to me like we had way more than 112 pages of comments. So are we sure that all of the comments we got were shared, Teresa? I mean, maybe there were several names on one page,
Right.
so the 112.
These are comments that the department received. It does not include the comments staff commission received. So,
So do we share those with?
no, we normally share them at the hearings when we were conducting the hearings. As we were getting them, we would provide copies for the public to review. But their proposal only includes what was sent to Caltrans, not what was sent to us.
For the ones that you did make available, we've added those in there, and we have
Oh, okay.
summaries of the statements made by the speakers within the ITIP as well. And we'd invite during this period when they can respond to the STIP, if they see that we've mischaracterized what they said, we'd be happy to correct that. I mean, we don't make a verbatim transcript of it. That exists. People can watch that, but we just capture the main idea.
But to your point, we will go back and check all the comments we received just to make sure that they have been incorporated here as well.
Okay.
We incorporated everything that we received either from the commission or directly from the agencies.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the comments that come to us, since we did not and do not take in a position on the ITIP, that we need to share, make sure that the entity that was responsible at least heard from all of our partners. So let's just double check. And,
Okay. And you'll see at the top, many of them are addressed to you or to Susan Branson, and then at the bottom of the letter, it's a CC to someone in Caltrans.
Okay, I just want to make sure, we took our role very seriously of listening, but we didn't write the plan, so we need to make sure that the folks that were the authors hear what we're hearing, and obviously there's lots of sides of lots of discussions,
Yes.
so that's why we're all here. So, a question on the rail, and I don't know if I should wait, but I recently participated in a grand opening of a Metrolink station, and so when you tell me that you're skinnying down some rail platforms and stuff, I'm concerned with the ultimate user experience is a good one, because if we make it not too convenient of an experience, and my challenge out there was little to no shade at all. And granted, we were there in the winter time, so it wasn't a problem, but we have a huge, big ramp, and it gets hot in some of our areas, different times of the year. So I just want to make sure that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot, so to speak, by skinning something down that's going to cause passengers not to do what we're hoping they'll do, which is get on board. So, Kyle, do you want to address that?
Yes, he does.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for addressing that. I believe you're talking about the mini-high platform. Those are actually projects that are intended to provide level boarding access for ADA passengers.
Okay.
So it's an ADA access issue, and we want to provide an equal experience for those users in terms of getting on board the train sets. We certainly agree with you on passenger comfort and attractiveness. We don't have much say over that at Caltrans. It's a local implementing agency issue, but shade and protection and safety are certainly key features of platforms.
And lighting. All
lighting,
of that,
absolutely.
yeah.
But this project is primarily for the benefit of ADA passenger.
But we
boarding.
were skinning it down. We're still providing the service, right?
We found a more cost-effective way of delivering the actual mini-high platform.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
Component.
Okay.
But are they temporary platforms, and eventually you will do the permanent ones? I mean, is that the idea?
No, we originally were thinking of a very expensive concrete pour-in-place kind of approach, and we've been speaking with our partners in the rail industry about a lighter weight prefabricated metal construction, similar to what you may see at the Long Beach Airport, which is very much a permanent steel or aluminum structure, but we actually have flexibility to move it around the platform if conditions require that, and to ease maintenance as well.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
The issues that I
Yes,
highlighted for rail, I will continue working with the department to get the information we need in order for us to make a sound recommendation and staff recommendations.
Okay, so I think we're missing information to do a good cost-benefit analysis. It's going to be real tough when you're oversubscribed in a program if you don't have good info to make an analysis, because in the absence of analysis, it's hard to justify, so, yeah.
Yeah, and I would just echo Teresa's comment. We are more than happy to work with commission staff to improve the PSRs, to improve the benefit cost analysis. Some of the projects, it's very difficult to find the proper BCA methodology because of projects such as the regional maintenance facility. It's not a capacity expansion project. It's a project that's going to allow us to better maintain rail cars and make them more available. So we'll try to find a methodology that lets us account for more reliable rail equipment and how that can reduce travel times and put those factors into a benefit cost analysis. So we'll work on that with commission staff.
Okay, well, over the years, I hope we've always had maintenance facilities to take care of. So historically, have we used another method to justify that, or what did we do in the past?
That's a great suggestion from the highway maintenance side. We could certainly look at what methodologies were used there and see if that applies to a rail vehicle maintenance facility.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, this is all pieces to the big, wonderful transportation mobility puzzle. So with that, Teresa, are we ready to move on? Okay. We are now going to go to San Diego, and Hassan, welcome. Welcome back to the SCAG region.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair Edmund. Good morning.
Hold on just a second, Hassan, maybe I messed up. Kevin, yeah?
No.
a brief introduction of their proposal.
Oh, you are? You're going to cue it up for Hassan?
Sure,
Oh, there you go. Sorry,
I'll wait.
Hassan, I'm sorry.
no problem.
So, Madam Chair, San Diego can be found on page 42 of the hearing book. San Diego has a target of 18.4 million, and Sandag is proposing to program 2.8 million above their target. They are proposing to advance the I-5 HOV extension Phase 1 Carlsbad segment from fiscal year 22-23 to fiscal year 2021. Sandag is also proposing to program a new project, the I-5 HOV conversion to Express Lanes project. The issue with Sandag's proposal is the request to advance their I-5 HOV extension project by 2 years. There is no capacity in the first 2 years of the STIP. And with that, Hassan.
Sorry, Hassan.
Thank you, you just took my talking points.
Okay, good. Well,
Thank you, Chairman. Let me start by congratulating Mitch for his appointment. Looking forward to working with you, Mitch. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about the I-5. Our strategy at Sandag is to complete regionally significant projects that improve congestion, improve mobility, meet the goals of SB 375, meet the goals of the regional and state mandates. The proposed Sandag builds on a previous investment of more than $1 billion, 220 million of which is locally funding natural resources enhancement, advancement, environmental mitigation. So Sandag proposed 2020 STIP focuses on two goals. One is completing the I-5 North Coast Corridor, and two, making the I-5 smarter by funding conversion to managed lanes. I don't have to tell you how crucial a corridor I-5 is, you know that, for both passenger and goods movement. The project is shovel-ready, but funds are currently not programmed until 2023. A funds request has been submitted by District 11 to fund it in 2021. If we cannot move the funding from 2023 to 2021, that will result in an increased cost of $24 million because you have to do the new contract, etc. And I don't think that's a good use of public funds. Our proposal also include design the right-of-way for converting the high occupancy vehicle lanes to toll lanes along the I-5 corridor. And this convergence supports what we call the 5 big moves planning effort that we're doing in San Diego. We're also asking for focus to continued planning and programming. So that simply put, we are requesting STIP funds be programmed for the I-5 North Coast Corridor, Carlsbad segment at the earliest times to Sandag can deliver on this shovel-ready work. We are also requesting the program, the conversion of high occupancy vehicle lanes to high occupancy toll lanes on the I-5. And finally, we're requesting monitoring fund and critical to helping Sandag meet state and federal mandate for planning and programming. And be happy with my team here, Jose and Dan, Nat, to answer any questions.
Teresa?
Yes, as we mentioned earlier, the proposal that Sandag has, they want to advance 89 million, 2 years. And the only way we can do that is if other projects are delayed by that amount, because we have to be constrained by statute per year and as a whole. So I will work with your staff. I did talk to Jose earlier so that we can kind of strategize and see what options we have, like AB 3090s, or in order for you to be able to continue that segment with the contractor, with us, because it is a CMGC contract. Mm-hmm. That is an important fact for this project. So I will work with Sandag staff to see what options we have, because I'm not really sure if the STIP can support that proposal at the moment.
What, the 24 million, that's the increase that Hassan mentioned, how's that on your books? Because the STIP period would cover that.
It is not in the books.
It's not.
It's not in the books, but
Okay.
if we even delay it to 2022, that would be about $10 million cost increase. If we increase it to 2023, it's 24 million. So it will be really a sad thing to do, to pay $24 million because we couldn't. And we're open to creative ways. And by the way, I don't care if the other project get delayed. We need to fund this project, right? But we're open to any creative ideas to make sure funds are available in 2021 to save money. And actually, this is critical not only for San Diego, but for California and for the nation.
So the whole subject property will become, or project will be a toll lane?
When it's
Hassan?
done, correct, we will convert the HOV land to managed lanes.
And when would that be?
When is it? 2025.
So is that a different business model than what we were first considering? And how do you consider that, Teresa?
Well, the original was an HOV,
Right,
right? And
Okay.
so, yes.
yes.
So it's just the continuation. And this project has two segments. In 2018, they had proposed to deliver this project in its entirety.
Uh-huh.
And the STIP couldn't do that, couldn't afford to do that. And so they segmented. So this is the second segment. So we are trying to make it work. It is, we've already evaluated the project in 2018. It was already programmed in 2018. We put it in the last year of the STIP because of the size.
Uh-huh.
Now they want to advance it, and so we need to find a way to figure out how we can do it because
So,
at the
Chair,
moment we can't.
and I appreciate it. So just, Chairwoman, our regional transportation plan eventually have to meet very strict state requirement. And I believe from efficiency standpoint, the conversion is better because it will add capacity to the system as a whole. But from meeting the requirements, the modeling show that if you just make it an HOV, you'll increase vehicle mile travel. And we need to reduce it by 19% per capita in 2035. So I think there is a critical thing for us to do that conversion while we can. But it's also very critical that we don't go looking for $24 million if the funding doesn't come in early.
So Hassan, you're saying that modeling shows that if you put a toll on, people travel less?
Correct. There will be reduction in vehicle mile travel if you dynamically priced an HOV and make it a hot lane. Have to be dynamic pricing though. Can't fix
Okay.
the price.
Okay, okay. I guess my other question is how, and I have this on a repeated basis for a lot of regions, how does the resiliency planning factor in? Because clearly we have a number of our counties and our regions that we see over and over again when we lose one artery, so to speak, that our resiliency is very, very fragile. We saw that in San Luis Obispo with the I-5 closure for extended periods. And we've seen it all over the state. So how do we factor in the resiliency objective and guideline and planning that we're doing? And Teresa, and God love you, I don't know where you're going to make this magic happen, so.
I think you bring a very, very good point. And in general, I think that is a factor that in the past we really had not incorporated into our guidelines, but it is something critical that we need to start evaluating and looking and making sure that all the regions take that into consideration. So moving forward, we have to add that into our guidelines so
Okay.
that we are able to,
Okay.
they are able to address it.
Okay, well, I think
Thank
it's
you.
crucial for all of us. And then I'm going to do just one last question for you. Hassan, I'm channeling Commissioner Kehoe. And little problem down on the bluffs down there. Now, I don't know if that's all going to be shop work, but I'm thinking there might be some stip work that we need to do. And I know you all have come together, you have a task force. I can't imagine we even know what the price tag might be. I'm guessing it's very expensive, but it gets into my holistic resiliency question once again, as we also have, how's all that? Hassan, how are we going to make that work?
We're going to have to make it work. I guess there is really, and you're right, the price tag is in the billions of dollars, but we're going to have to make it work if we were to continue to move forward, economically speaking. So the Los Angeles corridor, the whole corridor got, last one, 2 months ago, when we had the storm, we had to close the corridor for rail for a while and slow the speeds. And under my emergency powers, we have to go and fix it right away just to stabilize it. That gets into the whole thing. How do we keep our arteries resilient for the future? And that requires us to be creative. But in this case, I believe not only completing the HOV, but the converting goes in that line. Regarding the Commissioner Quijos and the statewide working group now in Los Angeles I mean, I welcome that. I think this is very much needed to get into the resiliency of the future.
Okay, that's good. But I'm going to go back where I started with the cost increases. So for all of us, it behooves all of us, no more cost increases,
Right.
because we've got a tough enough job to make the math work as it is. So if we look at the cost savings page, that was a much shorter page in my recollection. And so I think for all of us, we got to do everything we can to be prudent and not spend, don't waste anything at all, because clearly the needs are, and Teresa's got a tough job.
Just to
with
reemphasize, like your staff already indicated, this is not this is a real number. If we don't get the funding in 2021, delay to 2023, we need to look for $24 million to do the same thing we would have done in 2021. Simple equation, changing the contractor, etc. And we'll be sad. So we're open to working creatively with your team to make sure we can do that.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
Hassan. Okay, so we're going to queue up Ted, but first, Kevin, are you going to do, or Teresa's going to do
Yes,
the
we're
intro?
changing here.
You're tag teaming here.
Tulare is found on page 63 of your book. Tulare has no target in this STIP cycle. This was due to advancing their shares in prior cycle. In this cycle, they are proposing to advance by $8 million. Majority of the increase is funding for their Commercial Avenue interchange project by $9.4 million and adding $1.5 million to a new project, the realignment and operational improvements on State Route 65. Ted.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Director, and staff. Thank you on behalf of our board for letting us speak today. And first, I want to say thank you again for doing that extra hearing, and CTC, Caltrans, and Secretary Kim, who stepped in and we restored funding to 99. First, I just want to remind you all, as we have in the past, we put 100% of our STIP funding has gone to the state highway system. It's gone to that for over 15 years. We're committed to partnering with the state. What you see in our partnerships is generally where money is going to 99. Some projects in the valley have been able to put interchanges with the widening, and others do not necessarily work that way. In having strategic discussions with our district, we didn't want to hold up widening or hold up an interchange project by putting them together, because generally that would, in the long run, result in more cost increases. So we are partnering with Caltrans. Caltrans prepared a 99 business plan a few years ago in partnership with the Valley. We continue to move forward to do that project. What you see in front of you is primarily two interchanges. It was mentioned earlier by Teresa. This is the commercial interchange. What would be at the bottom of your page, it doesn't look beautiful, but those white buildings in the left corner actually are part of the largest international ag show in the world. It will start next week. in which we'll see 75 countries come. And that's not the only event held there, but it's certainly very important event that's big for the economy in the whole valley and for the ag industry. For the commercial project, it certainly is a priority for us. It's a public-private partnership. The private side paid for half the environmental. The private side is dedicating all the land right-of-way part. We still, if you look in there, we have costs for right-of-way. That's because there's utilities and about 5% of the land or that type of deal. We'll be applying for LPP competitive, infra, and build, all three. We also will be looking for bonding. We're in the middle of getting our bonding ready that would pay for our share of the construction on this project. So this is a critical project for us. And then the other interchange project that you can see that would be go to construction a few years later as a partnership with our CMAQ money, where we'll be putting roundabouts at the interchanges, and we'll be having a regional children's hospital be put in there. So that, hopefully I went around 5 minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions. We certainly are willing to work with Teresa, some of those creative ideas about what we may or may not have to do with moving funding out a year or so.
All right. Teresa, you have a question?
Just the same thing. We are over programming the first few years, so I will work with your staff to see what we can make work on your proposal.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ted. Okay, now we are going to go to Fresno. And Robert, hold on just a second. Kevin, you can do this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Fresno can be found on page 11 of your hearing book. Fresno's total target is $49.3 million, and they are proposing $43.5 million in new programming. The majority of their new programming is to add the construction component, valued at $42.3 million, for the South Fresno Interchange project in fiscal year 23-24. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Inman, and congratulations to Director Weiss. My name is Robert Phipps, and I'm the Deputy Director for Fresno COG. And just kind of continuing on that valley trend of focusing on 99, our major project is the South Interchange. As you know, the ITIP is an important source of funding for Fresno, and we have a region-wide policy of leveraging all of our state and federal funding on major improvements with our local Measure C sales tax. As in previous cycles, STIP cycles, our RTIP reflects the partnership among Fresno COG, the Fresno County Transportation Authority, Caltrans, and the CTC that enables our region to maximize project delivery with a combination of local Measure C, state, and federal resources. In the 2018 RTIP, we were able to use APDE funding to environmentally clear a series of what are now obsolete half interchanges along State Route 99 and replace them with full interchanges. The new interchanges will improve local circulation by having one central freeway access point for each location instead of multiple locations as it's currently designed. The project will improve safety along the 99 corridor by improving ingress and egress from freeway to the local streets. Other benefits will include increased traffic capacity and improved traffic operations, which will reduce truck idling times and help improve air quality. The South Fresno Interchange project will serve an area planned for approximately 1,000 acres of industrial use, which is already home to major fulfillment centers that have created thousands of jobs. And this project will accommodate the region's future transportation needs. Environmental work on the project may be complete as early as next year, and the Measure C expenditure plan is reserving funding to begin design and right-of-way acquisition also next year using that Measure C funding. RTIP funds will be used on construction, which is proposed for the 23-24 year, with a total project cost of about $148.5 million. Fresno COG is requesting $42.3 million in STIP County shares. Our other projects are carryovers that we plan to complete within the programming cycle. All of our proposed projects are regionally significant and included in our self-help Measure C expenditure plan. In addition to our RTIP funding proposals, we've leveraged local measure funding for all of our proposed projects and have been able to demonstrate success in keeping our promises made to the region by delivering past projects timely and efficiently. The benefits of our proposed projects are consistent with the adopted RTP-SCS and will not be impacted by the SAFE rule. So we thank you again for Caltrans and the rest of our partners for their collaboration in the RTIP process, and we look forward to continuing those partnerships, delivering great transportation projects. Thank you.
Great. So Robert reminded me of my other concern, Teresa, for you, the SAFE rule and all of that. So as you do your tough job, are you aware of any potential delay, that the uncertainty around the no man's land that we found ourselves in?
You put it perfectly, the no man land. And at this point, we really do not know the impacts. It's going to occur when the projects come forward for an allocation and they're not able to. But we did request every region to put in their RTIP to that their best of their knowledge, the proposal is not going to be impacted by the SAFE rule. But that is a concern that we do have. When we start programming these very, very large projects, especially in the early years of the STIP, whether or not they can even move forward, especially if the projects are federalized. So that is a concern, and that is something we are cognizant and working with the regions just to make sure that the projects are not impacted.
Okay, so your tough job just got tougher.
It is.
Yeah.
We're 2324.
Yeah, so real quick on that project, do you currently have a federal funds on that project?
Yes.
Okay, and they are committed funds, or
Yes.
are you going to be applying for a federal grant? I was not clear.
As I understand, it's both. We are looking at the potential for infra. We don't know that we're going to make it this cycle.
Okay, so the proposal, if you do not get it, you have committed funds for your local will be, if you don't get, okay.
Yes, that is correct.
Just wanted to
The
make
grant would
sure.
offset local.
Okay,
Yeah.
But you already have a federal grant on that? No. I thought he said both.
Committed federal funds, but not a federal, not like an infra grant. or-
Not enough grant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Now we're going to queue up Ann, and Teresa, are you going to do Riverside? Okay. Ann,
Riverside, that's page 37 of your book. Riverside is programming to their target of 21.3 million. The proposal identifies their AB 3090 replacement project as the 9171 interchange and connector project. They are also proposing to increase the construction funding from 50 million to 66.4 million and advancing the project by one fiscal year. This project has uncommitted funds and will be seeking SB1 funding, and they are also proposing 2 new projects. Ann.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, Chair Inman. I was going to congratulate the new Executive Director, Mr. Weiss, but he's out of the room. There he is. Congratulations, Mitch. We will look forward to working with you, and we appreciate the collaboration with CTC staff as well. Good morning, my name is Ann Mayer. I'm the Executive Director of the Riverside County Transportation Commission, and I appreciate the opportunity to present our proposed RTIP projects today for inclusion in the 2020 STIP. We've prepared a one-page handout for you. It's on the screen as well, and this will give you some perspective with respect to the 4 projects that are included in our submittal. Before I get into the project details, though, I'd like to take a brief moment to describe Riverside County to put into context why these projects are significant to the region. Riverside County has a population of 2.4 million and is the second fastest growing county in the state. The county is comprised of about 65% disadvantaged communities and is ranked 4th, specifically the city of Corona, in the nation for the longest commutes. The county has 28 cities, spans 7,200 square miles, of about which 16% is considered rural. The county serves as a conduit from the ports of LA and Long Beach, with more than 77% of the freight being pass-through cargo destined for places beyond the county line, and corridors such as State Route 91, I-15, and I-10 are the most heavily traveled gateways to the rest of the nation, and as Chair Inman says, every day is a freight day in the Inland Empire. Our submittal includes 3 new projects, which this presentation will focus on. There's one existing project, the I-15 French Valley Parkway project. It's a carryover from the 2018 STIP, and Bruce mentioned earlier the wild ride, the roller coaster of previous STIPs. French Valley Parkway is a survivor of all of those roller coaster rides, and so we're happy to see that the project is now fully funded, especially with a $50 million federal infra grant that was received a couple of months ago. The other 3 projects are the I-10 Avenue 50 interchange in Coachella, the Coachella Valley Regional Signal Synchronization, and the 7191 interchange connector. The first project, and I'm moving from east to west in Riverside County, the first project is the I-10 Avenue 50 interchange. The city of Coachella is the lead. I-10 is a very heavily traveled freight corridor with about 15% of the trips attributed to heavy-duty trucks. This project will include a new interchange, new arterial widening. It will be one of the links to connect Interstate 10 with State Route 86, which is another goods movement corridor leading to Imperial and to Mexico, moving goods and especially agriculture from between the United States and Mexico. The project will also include pedestrian bicycle facilities, and neighborhood electric vehicles will be accommodated as well. The second project, and like many others, we usually spend most of our STIP money on system. This is an off-system project, but one that is very important to regional mobility. This Coachella Valley Regional Signal Synchronization project is being led by CVAG. This plan identifies 70 regional arterials that represent the transportation system. Phase 1 will identify the top 3 corridors. Phase 2 will implement traffic signal synchronization on 18 corridors, including approximately 244 signalized intersections along 93 miles of arterial roadway. Ultimately, there will be more than 600 traffic signals within the Coachella Valley that will be synchronized and controlled. And this regional approach will allow jurisdictions to more effectively adapt to emerging technology, including connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, big data, integrated corridor management, and smart cities. The third project, which is the 7191 Interchange Connector Project, is RCTC-led and is located in northwest Riverside County in the city of Corona. If there is anything you take away from today, let it be this. The 71 Connector Project is not simply a typical connector, freeway-to-freeway connector. It is a very critical component of the 91 implementation plan. You may recall that in 2003, the Orange County Transportation Authority purchased the franchise rights for the 91 express lanes, which has allowed both OCTA, RCTC, and Caltrans to make significant investments in the 91 corridor between the 55 in Orange County and I-15 in Riverside County. The 91 implementation plan has billions of dollars of improvements on this corridor. And most recently, RCTC invested $1.43 billion in the 91 corridor to build express lanes as well as to reconstruct interchanges all along the corridor. Of that $1.43 billion invested in the 91 corridor for that project, approximately $39 million was state funds, 37 of it being state and local partnership funds from Prop 1B, and $2 million out of the STIP. So you can see that the other 98% of that $1.43 billion came from local coffers as well as debt related to our measure as well as a TIFIA loan. So commissioners, we have invested significant amounts of money in the 91 corridor. The 7191 connector was one of the components of our corridor plan that had to be deferred because of the recession, and we didn't have enough money. The 7191 connector project is a critical connection between the 91 and the 71, which leads to LA and San Bernardino counties. Again, another freight movement corridor. I think what's also important on this connector project is that it has been designed and sitting on the shelf for several years. In fact, it's been on the shelf so long, we've redone the environmental. I think we're on our 3rd round of an environmental reevaluation. We are now updating the design to meet current standards again. We have all of the right-of-way, we have all of the utilities relocated, and so this project is very, very critical. It is a 3090 replacement project, as Teresa mentioned. And we will be bringing the project in to the Commission's competitive SB1 processes in the coming year. I'd like to highlight that the enabling legislation for SB1 specifically cited the 91 corridor and the 91 implementation plan as a perfect example of what we need to be doing to manage congested corridors. With that, I'll complete my presentation and happy to answer any questions.
Teresa?
Yeah, we have a similar issue with this project in terms of the capacity, but I talked to your staff, and I told them I would be working with them on the schedule to see what other options we have. Okay?
Thank you.
That's all.
I have a question, Ann, in terms of, you mentioned that your Corona have some of the worst commutes, and I don't know if that's in the nation or the state, but
It is.
they're not good commutes. Anyway, what all do you know about those folks? Because when I go out, if I have an early meeting in the IE, I'm going the other way. But I see lines a gazillion miles long there trying to get on to the, what all do you know? How long are they delayed there? What, do we know specific
So-
details?
So when we talk about the 91, we really need to talk about the geography of the 91 as
Yeah,
well
it's
as
tight.
it's in a canyon.
Yeah.
So the 91 corridor is the only way to get through that canyon and the only connection other than the Ortega
Exactly,
Highway to the
yeah.
south between Orange County and Riverside County. So for the many, many people who live in Riverside County due to the affordability of housing, they're working in Orange County. What we do know is that not only do we have the people who live in Corona who travel that corridor every day, but we have people from as far south as Temecula, Lake Elsinore, Hemet, San Jacinto, San Bernardino, who travel the 91 every single day. There's over 325,000 cars a day on that corridor now, and people, it is not uncommon for people to have a 1.5 to 2.5 hour commute one way headed westbound in the morning. With respect to the congestion that you see for people queuing to get on the freeway, many of those folks are Corona residents. Some of them are cut-through traffic, so ever since the advent of waves and in Google Maps, we now see people diverting off of the freeway to save a minute to get onto the local arterial. So we're seeing a lot of local arterial congestion as well. So some folks sitting at the Green River on-ramp could spend 45 minutes just waiting to get on the freeway. We have another project there from Green River to, in the westbound direction, Green River to the 241 connector in the westbound direction. We call it the 91 Corridor Operations Project. That project is a $45 million addition of a lane that will go to construction later this year as well to try and relieve some of that backup. I do want to point out that the partnership between RCTC and OCTA is very, very strong and very productive. We are very grateful that OCTA is providing $15 million for that project to help relieve congestion in Riverside County. So this is a true partnership. We're investing everything we can to make the operations of the corridor as efficient as possible. But the bottom line is, affordable housing is in Riverside and in the Inland Empire, and more people are moving there. And so the congestion issues will continue to become extremely critical for residents with untenable commutes.
Yeah, I think you hit it with the cut through. I was always curious to wonder how many of those were actually cut through, and, if it's cut through, where are the other choke points that they're trying to avoid? So I was just really trying to understand.
So right now, what most people are trying to avoid is the I-15 congestion. So Interstate 15 from the county line all the way down to the San Diego county line, it is a very congested corridor in both directions. So most people are trying to avoid congestion on I-15. We have another project under construction, half a $500 million under construction, building express lanes on a portion of that. The 3090 that Teresa mentioned, that was a $50 million allocation that the commission had provided in the last step to start the environmental document for the next phase. So until we can get the billions of dollars of improvements in on the ground on I-15, we'll have a cut-through problem.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Thank-
Okay.
thank you.
Ann. Okay, now we're going to go to Los Angeles. We'll put Will in the queue line, and Kevin's going to take that one, right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Los Angeles can be found on page 21 and 22 of the hearing book. Los Angeles is proposing above their total target. They are proposing programming up to their maximum of $46.3 million. Their proposal includes increasing their total programming for their highway projects by $5.1 million and their rail and transit projects by $41.2 million. In their highway programming, they are proposing cost adjustments to their two State Route 138 projects, as well as proposing to advance the Route 405 Crenshaw Ramp Improvement Project by 2 years to fiscal year 2021. Los Angeles' proposal identifies the AB 3090 replacement project as the Buses and Infrastructure 100 ZEB project, Project 1, and delaying it by a year to fiscal year 21-22. Los Angeles is also proposing a new project, the Buses and Infrastructure 100 ZEB Project 2, valued at $41.2 million. And they are also changing all bus procurement to zero-emission bus procurement. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Inman
Yes.
and Director Weiss, Will Ritter with the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity this morning to present on our 2020 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. It goes without saying that the STIP continues to be a significant element of Metro's overall funding strategy for expansive projects and programs throughout Los Angeles County. In 2017, the Metro Board acted on what we call the evaluative criteria framework in advance of the 2018 STIP, as well as the initial implementation cycle for SB1. This is a kind of framework in which we prioritize projects for both not only discretionary grants, but also state and federal formula funds. And what is important in this with respect to the formulaic funds is looking at projects that we prioritize due to the certainty of formula funds and their need to avoid risk. Those types of projects that have come out of this process, as you'll see reflected in our 2020 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, are those that reflect critical needs in safety, operations, and state of good repair. The other thing that's depicted on the slide before you is something that we are very excited about, as we have just recently presented to our board on the initial outcomes of our next-gen bus study, which are both reimagining and restructuring the bus program within Los Angeles County to establish priority corridors that can bolster ridership through not only kind of various types of frequency improvements, but also customer satisfaction improvements. In parallel to this, we also have a master plan for our zero-emission buses that is being finalized, and that is where we are actually kind of moving to not only identifying some of our prior projects as simply kind of zero near zero, but we're confident that these will be zero-emission buses as we look to effectively marry those two efforts together and implement one of the largest zero-emission bus programs in the state of California. So recognizing partnership in the 2020 RTIP, I think as we've always recognized here, we are not only looking to fulfill Metro and the CTC's top priority to deliver existing commitments on projects, but we are continuing to maximize the impact of state dollars with the leveraging of other local funds. In the current 2020 RTIP, we're looking at that about a little over a 50-50 match, recognized here with $1.13 of other funds to every dollar of RIP funds. We also recognize, as has been presented by your staff, that we really don't have any new share capacity in the RTIP, but we are looking to take advantage of a prior kind of reprogramming, if you will, of a replacement project for an AB 3090. We want to just kind of recognize the importance of this and thank you, for that kind of opportunity to bring forward an AB 3090 because it was important at the time when we were looking to defend SB1 against the repeal, that we were using local funds to be able to deliver the construction of a project being implemented by Caltrans in the North County of Los Angeles. And now we are at a point in time where we're looking to reprogram those funds as articulated by your staff. We are, however, also looking at going up to our maximum shares, the $46.3 million for additional bus projects. So just to kind of highlight some of the program elements, here is kind of noted is that the majority of our program is looking at kind of the carryover from the prior STIPs, kind of broken out here, 43% that is kind of through the various amendments and other carryover projects. Only 9% of the total program is looking to program additional shares. This table here kind of highlights the amendments that we're proposing, again, reflecting our commitment to ensuring that we are aligning the funding opportunities with the needs of the project so that we can deliver, on these investments and the commitments to Los Angeles County and support our collaboration with District 7, who is implementing a number of these projects on our behalf as well as the behalf of our sub-regional agencies. The new programming, again, is kind of noted that we are looking to reprogram as the replacement project of the AB 3090 monies. We are also looking here to take advantage of the maximum shares to be able to bring forward additional bus projects. And again, these are targeted as replacements to our existing bus system. We replace on average about 150 to 200 buses a year based upon their 12 to 14 year useful life and our total fleet size about 2,200 buses. So again, this is critical to our kind of state of good repair of those vehicles as well as supporting our transition to zero emission buses as required by not only the state, with the implementation of that really kicking off in 2023 for large bus operators like Metro, but also recognizing on top of this has been our board's commitment to actually beat the kind of overall kind of fleet transition deadline by accomplishing that by 2030. So we just want to kind of highlight a couple of the projects which are kind of the larger ones that we are kind of programming through our 2020 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. The State 138 project is hopefully very familiar to you. It is a project that we have been delivering in partnership with the state since the 2002 STIP cycle. It is a complex project that has been working through a number of different types of improvements through these communities, completes 17 miles of improvements. Widens the roadway from 2 to 4 lanes, eliminates a lot of the complex kind of rolling profile within this portion of North County, and of course upgrades a number of the intersections throughout the corridor for full compliance, with ADA sidewalks and curb ramps, as well as ensuring that project promotes connectivity through the communities which it serves. We would note here that as part of the amendments, we have been taking advantage of cost savings that have been realized in certain segments on the project to kind of retarget those to some of the areas where we've had cost increases, so keeping things revenue neutral within the corridor, as well as we've had to, working with District 7 in the community, we've downscoped the kind of the eastern segments of the project to kind of ensure that we're delivering everything that we can within the resources available, and also recognizing that we're going to do additional studies with our peers in San Bernardino County to most efficiently plan for the connectivity between Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties as we look at the transition from 138 to the 18. With respect to our bus replacements, again, this is an area where we have a lot of excitement within our region as we are transitioning our fleet to zero-emission buses. As you may be aware, we have moved forward with the purchase of buses to support the Orange Line Fixed Route Guideway BRT project in Los Angeles County, as well as the Silver Line. Those are the first 2 corridors which we are advancing the conversion to zero-emission buses. However, with the programming identified here in the State Transportation Improvement Program, we will be getting to 18% of our 2030 goal of the full conversion of our fleet. And as noted in the diagram here is looking at how we are working from the next-gen service redesign, which is critical to ensuring that we're addressing some of the historic ridership declines that I think have been felt nationally on this, as we also look at the fleet conversion to ensure that not only are we capturing more transit trips, but we are providing those in a more sustainable way, consistent with all of the state requirements and goals from our region as well. Just highlighting here a little bit about the Next Gen Bus Plan. This is a diagram that actually presents the tiering of those corridors and the frequency improvements that we're looking at with the Tier 1 corridors, targeting 5 to 7.5 minute frequency, and Tier 2 being 10-minute frequency. And looking at, as we've noted here, that 81% of our bus riders use the Tier 1 or Tier 2 corridors. And then to note that as we have been working with our board, recognizing that as part of layering in the zero-emission buses, we have the orange and silver lines as noted before, and then we're working out of our divisions 9 and 18 to be able to look at how we target the deployment of the zero-emission buses along with all the necessary charging infrastructure that is going to be required, not only in the divisions, but also as we anticipate in some of the actual corridors that they will be running. So just a note here, again, we are looking at balancing investments in both the highway and in the transit side with our STIP. We're looking at the investments supporting 9 miles of safety improvements, as well as the purchase of 320 zero to near zero emission buses, delivering on state goals, and looking at where we are providing significant benefits into GHG emission reductions, where we're looking at investments that are improving safety and reducing congestion, and also here is noted where we are addressing our significant state of good repair needs. We talk about the replacement of our aging buses that also then support the greening of those vehicles and the subsequent air quality improvements that are critical within our region, let alone the greater Southern California region. And with that, we'd like to thank you, as always, for the continued partnership with the CTC in being able to implement these often complex projects and programs. We are committed to working with you to address any additional questions that you have on our program of projects. And again, thank you for your continued support.
Question? I do, but yours are more important than mine.
No, not necessarily. It's really the same issue, the advancement. That's going to be a challenge, and so I will be working with your staff just to work on that. But I did have a question in regards to the ITIP in the link US. So I would like to defer it to Chair if she has questions on your RIP so that I can talk about the US link that is in the ITIP
Certainly.
after.
Okay, so here comes my question. 6055 interchange, move back, why?
Schedule.
Well, we've been working on that corridor for a really long time. We've got an extended area where we've done a bunch of the work, but we're not using it yet. And I think in terms of delivering the ultimate value of the huge investment on that corridor, if we don't do the 6055, I'm not sure we're going to make anybody's life a whole lot better. So what's the status? And we really haven't heard updates recently on that whole I-5 project on that corridor. So I think it would help us to really understand where we are on that progress, because, we have a clear difference between Orange County on the 5 till you hit LA on the 5. And this whole, from the county line up to 605 was intended to help that flow better. We've been working in that corridor for years now. A good portion of the lanes are done, but we're not using them yet. So I think it would help us to really understand and then understand why a delay that we can't get that finished. So I'd like more information on, and that's going to go in the wrong direction and make your life even harder, because it's 18 million that was going over in the wrong direction, and Hassan would love to use that 18 million in 2021. But anyway, so that's a question there. And then with the next gen bus study and
improved frequency, to me, seems like that's not necessarily just replacing one-for-one bus. Are we adding to our fleet, or are we, I guess we need to understand a little bit more about that. And also, in that, how much of that is the infrastructure? I know charging infrastructure. I'm looking at Donna shaking her head back there, telling me that the easy part was ordering the bus. The tough part was getting all the power at the right affordable price to get it there, and then being able to afford it once we got it there. So I think understanding a little more about what part of that and where are we on that infrastructure journey, because it has been a challenge for our transit folks. A bigger challenge, I think, in actually getting the power source there. The buses seem to be, those are available and they meet our customers' needs and it's all good, but it's the getting the power, making the power work in the parking space we have available. So I'd like to understand, and I think it's particularly important because of the timing issue that we're facing. And the last thing we want is to push back on another project only to learn that we're going to be delayed because of our utility partner or where we are and whatever else is happening. And, you know, the early reports from our pioneers in that space have been, it's taken a lot longer and cost an awful lot more than they anticipated. So maybe Donna wants to come up and opine later, but that's a question I have, as given where we are with being oversubscribed, we need to make sure that we're.
And Commissioner, I'm going to work with your staff to provide Commissioner Inman a report on the I-5 corridor and what we've done and what we've finished and what remains to be done. I think that is something that's what you really want to see. Okay?
Well, yeah.
And I would say on that one, if I could, I mean, that's
Sure.
something we really want to make sure that we are coordinating with the department.
Correct.
And District 7. And then we can add to that with respect to the 6055 interchange. I think the recognition is we've gotten further into that interchange, is recognizing, you know, how we're needing to be coordinating, you know, with our various partners, you know, as far as the plans for the 5 that are, you know, going to be connecting into it, you know, they're around the 710. And then, you know, being realistic about, you know, the magnitude of those improvements, you know, and the impacts to
710's up the
communities.
ways a little
So-
bit. You know, this is at the 605, and we see traffic patterns where people are going north on 605. So, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So if
So
we might be
maybe
able
in your
to
corridor
defer kind of a more detailed response on the highway
Okay.
projects.
Okay.
On the bus projects, we take this extremely seriously, Chairman, and as we've talked before, and, you know, it's been one of the, you know, very kind of methodical kind of approaches that I think we've been trying to employ, you know, as I talked about, you know, going from where we have, you know, kind of the orange line, you know, fixed guideway BRT, as well as the silver line as being these kind of, you know, targeted corridors for the initial deployment of the zero-emission buses, so that we have a better ability to understand the needs, you know, not only at the divisions for, you know, those charging, you know, systems, as well as where we have opportunities, you know, to actually put in kind of the in-route charging, which is more complicated when we're talking about the buses that operate, you know, in, you know, local arterials and on streets that we don't necessarily control. But as I mentioned before, you know, we have going in parallel to the next gen bus study, our zero emission, you know, bus master plan. And so that is where, based upon, you know, those preliminary results, we have very kind of targeted, you know, kind of progression, you know, for this transition, you know, that's looking at where we are building out of the divisions where we have the capacity to be able to take on, you know, the charging infrastructure that we need. I think we would suggest that we've had, you know, very good experience so far, you know, with the 2 manufacturers that we're working with for the orange line and the silver line, and where we're moving forward to exercise, you know, certain options. We're also doing this, and again, as far as, you know, kind of a progressive transition, that here in September of 2019, our board acted on both kind of options for not only additional zero-emission buses, but also additional CNGs, so that we are very mindful, of how we're moving forward, but to recognize that, again, we are on the clock, for CARB regulations to be able to, support that transition, meeting certain requirements that for us begin as early as 2023, and where we have, these funds kind of aligned. So, we're happy, to be able to kind of bring forward to you some additional information, on that process. And I can't speak entirely to all of the experiences that we know folks like the Foothill, have experienced in this space and, with their kind of specific, bus manufacturer and those technologies. But I will note that, we are part of a number of groups that are actively, collaborating in this space. We've been having very positive conversations with our various utilities. We've got a very focused effort as well, like on the overall resiliency of the system, recognizing that this adds to the demand that we're going to be putting on, the grid and how we're going to be able to manage that, forward.
Okay, I think, and particularly the ridership, the commission has been particularly passionate about doing anything we could to help increase ridership, because at the end of the day, if our residents aren't riding our buses, it's not really going to matter what buses we have. So I think we would be interested in knowing, and I applaud Metro for doing the next gen work that you've done. I think it's crucial. I know Commissioner Norton has participated in that on an extensive basis, and I know once again it gets to that holistic experience. So we're real interested in knowing that. But yeah,
and I would note on that, just to answer your other question, is that the intent of the next gen is to be consolidating our bus service onto these high priority routes. And so the anticipation is not that we're going to be investing, into additional operations for that increased frequency, but it's essentially consolidating our service into these corridors, so that within the corridors themselves, the priority corridors, that we will be increasing frequency there. So we're kind of driving ridership to, the high priority corridors and being able to consolidate, services to increase the subsequent frequency within those corridors. And then to your other question, we have acknowledged to our board, and this is something that is critical, to the success of the next gen study, is that to be able to support that, there are going to need to be significant investments within, the infrastructure within those corridors. Some of that might be, signals, other, kind of passenger amenities, but other things could be more complex, including, ways to better support, those kind of frequencies, whether it be queue jumping or kind of priority, bus lanes within the corridors, kind of building off of, I think, what we look at as our very successful rapid bus program, which is an augmentation of the full BRT that we have on the, the Orange Line. So all those things are really in play, and I would say that coming out of the recent presentation of our staff to our board is that our board is fully committed to this.
Great, thank you. Other questions?
So real quick,
Sure.
I did get more information on the US link, and I had not had a chance to review it real quick, but just my comments on the issues that I had was because the proposal was not clear, was that what was the ITIP funding going to go towards?
So I'm happy to speak about this now, or we had a comment card that I think was being held till the last, but if you're okay with it, I think first starting off is that we strongly support the reprogramming the $60.8 million from the Raymer-Burnson to the Link US project. And we sincerely appreciate, the Commission's, efforts to be able to work with us to address, some of the additional questions, and the documentation to support that programming. The other part here that I think, kind of ties back to our presentation to the Commission back during the draft ITIP hearing here in Southern California, is to recognize that both Raymer-Burnson and Link US are part of a much larger program in Southern California for MetroLink and for LoSAN. It's commonly called SCORE, the Southern California, Rail Optimization Program. As we've, communicated, while we have, encountered challenges, with the delivery of the Raymond Burnson project that we've had to defer as we continue to work through some of the, the public impacts into sensitive communities that are along that area of the corridor. Link US is a critical project, to unlock the operational efficiencies, here for Southern California, and to really, as you see in this diagram, transition the station from a stub out, kind of track to one, that allows trains to move freely from, the north to south and in really all directions, through this area. With that, we recognize that, this is a very large, complex project. We are actively working with our state and our regional partners. I'm glad to see Donna DiMartino here and congratulate her in her new role with LoSAN. But, the recognition is that this is a project, that has significant implications along with SCORE, not only to passenger, commuter and intercity rail, but I think really, and I think Chair Inman, this is important, is, the implications of the SCORE program to freight and how we are, working through a lot of these issues. With Link Union Station, the complexity is one that, it's not only one where we're working through some of those direct impacts with the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad, where we're looking to have to relocate, or at least partially, some of their tracks along the West Bank. But this project also drops right down into where Metro is rebuilding our kind of what we call the portal widening and our additional kind of storage for the red and purple line subways. And that is being expanded out now to be able to accommodate the additional sections of the West Side Purple Line, so again, very complicated, and we are, again, working, actively with our various partners to implement kind of a procurement that we believe helps to, maintain the scope, cost, and schedule as best as we can. That includes a construction management general contractor procurement that we're looking to initiate with an RFP this spring. And that is something where I know has created some questions, as far as how we're identifying the different kind of delivery phases. As a part of this also, we have Metrolink that will be looking to kind of implement directly an initial construction phase at the throat of Union Station that you see here on the diagram that addresses necessary improvements for kind of the track and signal coming into the station itself. So, we are committed to working with you to address the ongoing questions. We take this very seriously on behalf of not only our, ourselves, but also, our state partners who are looking to ensure that what we deliver here, has not only benefits to, Union Station, but, is interoperable with benefits to, near-term LoSAN and Metrolink, as well as, the future potential for high-speed rail.
And, just to be clear, the merits of the project are not really in question. It is a great project. I think it is going to transform that whole area. It is the delivery and the consistency with STIP guidelines. But like I said, I can work with you in the next week just to get a better understanding so that, we have to have a defined scope of work and a delivery date, and we don't cash flow the STIP. So, but I'll continue working with you and your staff.
That's great.
Thank you.
And then I would just note, as always, we always enjoy having you down to, visit, take tours of these projects, and gain a better understanding of, what we're doing as far as scope and how we're looking to deliver them.
Okay.
So, as always, an open invite.
Thank you, Will.
So a question on that. So your agreement with the BNSF Railroad, where are you in that process? Those historically, we haven't been real speedy.
I would say that, and I would really give credit to our partners at the state who have been ahead of us on a number of the conversations, regarding, high-speed rail. But I would suggest that those have been, very positive as we've been working towards, various memorandums of understanding with the BNSF to be able to address, their relocation.
So do you need Teresa then to reach out to BN and?
No, not at this
Not now?
point. No, not
Okay,
at this
okay.
point. Thank you, though,
Okay,
for
just
your
checking.
suggestion.
Super.
Just checking. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so
thanks,
much.
Will. Okay. Orange County, Daryl, if we can cue you up, and then Teresa.
That's page 34 of your book, Madam Chair. Orange County is proposing above their total target by 20.4 million. They are proposing to delete 2 projects for a total of 73.9 million. They are also proposing to add 4 new projects for a total of 112 million. Although they are proposing to advance their State Route 55 Central Corridor Improvement Project by 1 year, the 2 deleted projects and delays to the other 2 projects reduce their overall programming in the first year of the STIP. Most of their programming is in the last year of the STIP. They are proposing uncommitted funds for the State Route 55, and the issue is the same. They are proposing to advance that project by 1 year. Daryl.
Thank you, and welcome to Orange County. And it's still morning, so good morning, Chair Inman. And Mitch, congratulations on your appointment. Looking forward to working with you and the rest of the CTC staff. We do appreciate the time that you've given us today to share our 2020 STIP submittal. We do pride ourselves on creating a balanced and forward-thinking transportation system that supports the diverse needs of travel needs in Orange County, as well as our workforce and our visitors. And I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but I think it's worth noting that Orange County, Los Angeles County, Santa Clara County are the 3 large urban areas with consolidated transportation entities that operate, that build, that raise revenue through local sales tax, own and operate express lanes, own and operate the bus system, have rail transit. And what I'm going to talk about a little bit today is how we balance that and how the STIP fits into that overall component. We have a multimodal approach. In fact, most of our programs and services, such as bus, commuter rail, our Measure M2 transit program, as well as our city streets, that accounts for more than 63% of our current year's budget. 1.5 billion is our current year budget. 63% of that is in the non-highway side. Significant amount is into the bus system, and I really enjoyed the discussion you just had with LA Metro about next generation buses and zero emission buses. And although not as part of the STIP submittal, I would note that last Friday we cut the ribbon on the first and largest public transit hydrogen fueling station in America. We have 10 new zero-emission hydrogen buses, and we'll begin supplying or procuring 10 battery electric buses later this spring with the goal of meeting all of those state mandates and having a cleaner and better future for all of us. So it's not in our STIP, but I think it's one of those things that you should know about. Also, construction is underway on Orange County's first modern streetcar between Santa Ana and Garden Grove, which is scheduled to start operations in 2022. We're very excited about that. Now we'll add light rail and streetcar transit to our portfolio of services. I think you know that we pride ourselves and we've shown ourselves to be an excellent steward of both voter-approved sales tax measures funds as well as external funding, and that we're very proud of our successful track record of delivering projects. And in fact, we're a big believer that projects don't get cheaper as time goes on, and a key part of our focus is always to accelerate as much as we can to ensure that we're getting the best value for the projects that we have out there today. We are very focused on this circular idea of delivering a balanced transportation system. So I'm going to show, I don't expect you to read this, that's not my point here, but this is the county map here. And a portion of that map I'll hone in on just a moment, but this represents about $7.5 billion of active projects underway. And I would note that in Orange County at 3.2 million people, our population is greater than 22 other states. And as a transportation budget in the county, we're larger than 17 other state DOTs. So there is a lot of work to do here, and it is always very exciting to try to figure out how we best serve the public in any given part of the county. So moving to the STIP, I want to hone in on what the STIP component is. And there's a specific handout that has some of the state goals and specifics here that you should have there. The STIP funding, the 2020 proposal, will complement the freeway component of OCTA's Measure M sales tax, which is identified in our, do you have a copy?
No, I don't think we have that handout.
You know, there's like 100 of them over here, so they're going to make their way around here. So
You can go up and back several times if you have 100, Doug. We're good, thanks. Sorry to interrupt you, Daryl.
No, that's no problem. Some of the things in there, I think, in a little more detail about each one, of course. But the STIP funding, really, I view it as a complement to the freeway component of our local adopted sales tax, known as Measure M, and our board-adopted Next 10 delivery plan, which is a 10-year commitment for our capital investment program of streets, roads, transit, light rail, commuter rail, and highways. And the STIP funds, as I said, the proposal is to fund the highway program, while other local funding sources are invested in transit and active transportation projects within the county. As it relates to this proposal, we've been working closely with Caltrans and our local agencies to sort of thoughtfully consider the most efficient and best use of the available resources that deliver services to the residents within the goals of the OCTA board, the Regional Transportation Plan, Sustainable Community Strategy, as well as the Governor's executive order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So from this point, let me just hone in a little bit on what's in the projects or in the STIP as a project component. The first project I want to highlight is the State Route 55 Improvement Project, which runs from the 405 to the I-5, which we are delivering in partnership with Caltrans District 12. The project will add a second HOV lane. There's been an HOV lane there for quite some time. In fact, I think history would show that it was the first carpool lane, not only in Orange County, but in California. So this is adding the second HOV lane to that. We're adding a general purpose lane as well as auxiliary lanes within that corridor. Key elements of the project also include transit, bikeway, pedestrian, and arterial improvements in that corridor. And those have been awarded SB1 funds through the Solutions for Congested Corridors funding in a previous cycle. The project overall is designed to provide significant multimodal improvements to relieve congestion along the corridor. And in fact, as the regional planning agency, our view is if we don't see improvements to the corridor, we project a 50% increase in total vehicle hours of delay by 2040. It is a high-profile project, and because of that, we're seeking to advance $80 million in STIP funds into the first year of the 2020 STIP cycle. This will align the funding with the existing project schedule. We will also be requesting support from upcoming cycles of eligible SB1 programs to fulfill what is currently a $70 million funding shortfall. In addition, we've been coordinating with Caltrans District 12. We've combined our improvements with State Route 55 shop improvements, which will minimize disruptions along the corridor and streamline the benefits for the public. As one of the most congested corridors in California, we hope you would agree this is an excellent candidate not only for the STIP, but for future SB1 funding. With that said, we do understand that there are limitations within the STIP relative to capacity, and we understand that advancing $80 million is a big ask. So therefore, we're trying to help ourselves and help you make an easier decision with that. And so to alleviate that strain, we've reprogrammed nearly $70 million of existing STIP funds from an I-5 project between Alicia Parkway to El Toro Road, not too far from here, and we will instead fund that locally through our sales tax program. Our hope is that this helps free up programming capacity and allow priority projects to move forward in a timely manner. Another new STIP project that we're excited about is the I-5 improvement project between Interstate 405, which is, again, right outside here, not very far, between here and the I-5. It will improve various local interchanges. As you know, the I-5 is a major regional commuter and commercial corridor. In fact, I would note that the Metrolink corridor that parallels the I-5 between here and Los Angeles just had its highest ridership ever. And by our analysis, if that Metrolink corridor wasn't there that we've invested in, we would need an additional 2 lanes of capacity on the I-5, so we would have the same amount of traffic. So I always let that sink in for a moment there. So we're very focused on how the two work together. Our forecast is that traffic would increase by over 10,000 vehicles a day by 2040. So we are proposing to program $82.7 million in additional STIP funds to the first segment of the project, which is from the I-405 to Yale Avenue in the city of Irvine. All $95.3 million in STIP funding on the project would be requested to be reprogrammed to the construction phase, which occurs in later years of the STIP cycle. So we also hope that is helpful. Moving a little bit south on the map, we are requesting $17 million in STIP funding for new projects that are in the environmental phase. One is I-5 improvements between Avenida Pico and the San Diego County line. That is proposed as an HOV lane. That would be the last high occupancy vehicle lane. It would finish out the entire HOV network in the entire county of Orange or all of District 12 as well. And then working with Caltrans to fund the next phase of work on State Route 74, what we call Lower Ortega, which is between the I-5 and eastern Orange County. And then the next phase of work on the 605 Catella interchange. Sort of wrapping back where I started, I would point out that while the RTIP submittal is strongly rooted in the highway side of the transportation system, we are looking to other funding sources, not only local funds, but other state funds such as ATP, the TIRCP funds, the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program, and others which have been specifically designed to meet state goals for multimodal projects to complement the STIP program of projects. For example, we recently submitted a $17 million request for TIRCP to support our transit integration projects, our Harbor Boulevard Connected Bus Program, our Regional Fare Integration Program, our better boarding of Bravo buses, which is our version of express buses, as well as zero-emission van pools that we plan to implement in the future. Through the implementation of advanced transportation technologies and innovative ticketing strategies, we want to make innovative and alternative transportation options more appealing to our customers and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I think you know we're experimenting with microtransit in 2 different zones today. We're learning a lot about that and we're very excited about that. But the STIP is critical to providing a balanced transportation system in Orange County, and it complements the improvements in all modes with the multiple funding sources that we have available to us to meet our local, regional, and state funding goals. So while it is an isolated submittal, I would encourage you to look at it in the regional whole of Orange County. And overall, our 2020 STIP will program more than $203 million to 7 projects. We believe that would equate to approximately 7,300 jobs over a 5-year time horizon. Would maximize mobility and accessibility for all people and goods in the region by saving over 22 million annual person hours. It would provide quantifiable emission reductions by preventing over 1.62 million tons of CO2 from being released into the atmosphere annually, and improve safety and significantly reduce congestion-related accidents as well. We look forward to the Commission's approval of our RTIP submittal in the future, and we greatly appreciate the time you have given OCTA today. And finally, I promised Ann Mayer I would make one correction to a statement she made earlier, is we have put $15 million to the Riverside County 91 project, but it is net excess toll revenue. So no measure dollars, no STIP dollars, no federal funds. Those were dollars that were generated from the 91 express lanes, toll lanes, and those were reinvested back into free lanes on the 91 corridor. We're very proud of that, very proud of our partnership with Riverside County on that. So with that, Chair Inman, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Therese, your question?
We have similar issues as the other projects, as the other programs, RTIPs, in regards to the advancing, and I will be working with your staff to look at the schedule and the opportunities we may have if we are unable to advance.
Great, we look forward to that, and we want to do everything we can not only to help with that, but also ensure that we keep the cost of the project in a reasonable manner, and the best way to do that is to get it out early, so we look forward to that conversation.
Okay, Daryl, I have some questions for you. One on the hydrogen buses. We would love to listen and learn from you on that one. I think you're probably the largest pioneer doing that, so anything we can all collectively learn would be great. So if you can maybe on one of our upcoming hearings or something, we'll figure out the appropriate time and place, but Lily, give us an update on, you know, are they able to do their duty cycle? Life is good, life isn't so good. Because we need to share, you know, I think we all need to learn together because we're on this journey. And thanks for taking one for the team and pioneering. We appreciate that. And I think the same on the microtransit. I've been fascinated over the years with the work you're doing, trying to figure out innovative solutions. So anything we can share, and Director Weiss, if we can figure out the appropriate time to really share learning and where does scale kick in and how do we really, you know, manage that, I think it would be great because I'm fascinated by what you're doing with the whole microtransit.
On either that or the microtransit or the hydrogen buses, obviously the hydrogen buses is a great partnership with the California Air Resources Board as well. We're happy to provide information, updates, tours, rides, whatever you would like to do. And then same thing on the microtransit. We're more than happy to share because we are all learning about what the future of mobility is, and those are 2 big components of it.
Yeah, and if you learned a lesson the hard way, I mean, you know, let's save some of our brothers and sisters from learning that hard lesson. And if things, you know, we were right on and hit it out of the ballpark, let's share that as well. So on that one, a couple of quick questions for you. One, with the truck climbing lane on Lambert, we have a construction underway currently out there. Help me understand what's going on there, and we're deferring that one, or what are we doing with that one?
I think we're doing two things. The actual truck climbing lane, we're deferring to a future cycle.
Okay.
We believe that's not ready, but more importantly, making sure that it's closely coordinated with any improvements being made by the department and District 7 and LA Metro as it relates to the 5760 interchange.
Okay,
But
that
what we
was the
do
reason.
have is improvements to the Lambert 57 road interchange, working with the local cities in that area. That's underway.
That's underway. Okay, I just want to make sure, because the 5760 is often touted as one of the worst intersections, so I just want to, since Barry is retired, I thought I had to bring that up.
He will probably send me a note on this now. So.
Yeah, I think he's probably still watching us. Good for him. And then on the Pico San Clemente question, and it kind of relates to Hassan's request, are those two going to connect, and you're delaying yours, or how's that going to work?
So as it relates, let me talk about the network in Orange County first, and then
Okay.
talk about San Diego County second. As an HOV network, there is not a more developed HOV network in the state of California than in Orange County. In fact, I believe the count is 11 direct freeway-to-freeway HOV connectors as well. This is the last segment. For a variety of reasons, it was not included in our measure program, largely due to demand. However, as we forecast forward, we see that there is enough demand south of Pico to the county line to build that out. And that would be the completion of the Orange County HOV network. As it relates to San Diego, we've had significant conversations with Sandag over the years about their plans. Clearly, they're very focused south of Oceanside in the current efforts. But between Oceanside and the county line, we are clearly planning in the same space, in the same manner. I think the question that, in my mind, is still to be answered by Sandag and Hassan is, what type of managed lane is it between Oceanside and the county line? Is it occupancy managed? Is it toll managed? Or is it a mixture of both into a high occupancy toll lane? I think their schedule is much farther beyond ours. We are ready to go into the environmental stage and transition that down properly just south of the county line. With that said, Mr. Crowder and I do have a meeting scheduled for later this month to talk all things Orange County and San Diego, and I'm sure we'll find common ground in that area.
Okay, because I think our traveling public doesn't necessarily know when they're leaving Daryl's jurisdiction and hitting Hassan's, so we need to make sure that it flows for everybody. And that brings me back to my next question, which is the 605 and the Catella improvements at the time when Metro is suggesting we delay the 605 and the 5. Once again, I think the same question of for the traveling public who doesn't know when they leave Orange County and hit LA, other than they want to keep going. So, yeah.
I think on that one, I think you're all aware that we have a fairly large construction project on Interstate 405 between Costa Mesa and the 405, 605, 22. In fact, it's the largest construction project in the state as it relates to highway. It's about 45% done, has tolled express lanes in the middle, and largely funded with local sales tax and a TIFIA loan. With that said, the interchange improvement at the 605 Catella is just that. It's an interchange improvement. It's not a mainline improvement. And we have worked hard to ensure that the mainline project of the 405 that I just described is significantly along and planned well with the 605. We don't believe that the interchange project in and of itself has any significant impact on mainline operations as it relates to future projects in another county. Because I would agree with you that the challenge over the last decade about the I-5 between Buena Park and the 605 shouldn't be repeated in the future. And we don't believe that what we're doing on the 405 and 605 22 interchange will recreate what we've seen on the I-5.
Okay, great. Yeah, I've gotten a couple speeding tickets when I was so frustrated in LA, and then I got to the OC and I stepped on the gas, so yeah. Not so good, yeah. Got to tell stories of myself. Okay, so with that, any more questions for Daryl? And then Mitch, you'll follow up and see what's appropriate so we can all learn from what our partners are doing. It'd be great. So,
Great, thank you.
thank you. Okay, Kern County. Joe, if we can cue you up, and Kevin can take that one? Okay.
So Kern County can be found on page 16 of the hearing book. Kern County has no target in this programming cycle due to advancing their shares for the State Route 58 West Side Parkway and West Side Parkway Connector Interchange projects in prior cycles. Kern County is proposing to delete the West Side Connector Interchange project and to program a new project, the State Route 46 Widen 4 Lanes project. The proposal is above their target by $750,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Inman, CTC staff. I had all these great words to read to you, but let me see if I can summarize it. Kern Cog's 2020 RTIP was really an exercise of just keeping the work that we needed to do moving forward as best we could. And so in our proposal, we redirected $30 million from our Centennial Connector Phase 2 project, which is proposed to produce an auxiliary lane at the 5899 interchange on the two freeways there, in combination with a future SHOP project, and that wasn't ready to go. And we are trying to advance the last segment of State Route 46, which you heard all about that up in Fresno. And so thank you again to CTC staff for working with us, because we ended up, in order to advance a build grant that we received last year, actually 2018, so 2 years ago, we are working very hard to advance what we're calling currently segment 4B. But in doing so, we're getting all the design and right-of-way work done for the two remaining segments. So in our RTIP proposal, we have segment 4B and 4C. But 4B, we hope to start construction in very early 2021, because the build grant has to be quote-unquote obligated by September 30th of this year. So we intend to have the design all completed, right-of-way completed, et cetera. So our partnership with Caltrans has been pretty incredible. They've been working with us, and our local folks, County of Kern folks, have been working hard to make the right-of-way process advance. They shaved off a whole year so that we don't lose our build funding. We are working on a TCEP grant, which is part of the proposal, to make sure we have enough funding. So the $30 million that we redirected, we put $27 million into the last piece, which was segment 4C, and we are asking for $3 million to go into segment 4B, which again we hope to deliver here shortly using the build grant. And but overall, we're just wanting to finish that up as soon as we can. We'd hoped to get some support out of the ITIP. That wasn't going to happen, so we dealt with that, and we, as a region, we did the best we could. So I'm very appreciative of our own regional leadership that they supported that proposal to try to wrap up and quote-unquote finish 46. So we're working very hard to do that. On the eastern end, in our letter to you in our RTIP, we also mentioned that we're wanting to refocus our intentions on a truck climbing opportunity on 58. It's a difficult area, so District 9 is working with us. We've been working through an MOU agreement with the ITIP to deliver widening projects for and our friends in Inyo, Olancha, Cartago, which has been fully funded, so they're trying to get going on that. But we have two pieces of Freeman Gulch that aren't completed, segment 2 and 3, but one just got built. But without the ITIP support, it's hard for our regional, our leadership to keep supporting it. And also just the challenge that we're trying to pick the best of our projects. They're all good projects. But, in light of asset management plans, output values, that as a state you're trying to manage that and be transparent about that. What are the benefits, et cetera. Anything that improves safety is a good thing, but it's hard. You have to triage all this stuff. So ultimately, the plan we've presented to you, we feel is the best we can do in this cycle. The message that my director, Mr. Hakimi, gave you 2 years ago is the same message. We're grateful for your support of the 46 corridor. We think it's a good thing. I'm grateful for Mr. Terra and his, reworking of work on that corridor, because we're, beneficiaries, not obviously just Kern County, but the San Joaquin Valley. And it is an important corridor, so for so many reasons, but definitely freight and goods movement, but also safety. The community of Lost Hills will benefit. There'll be some wonderful, no pun intended, the wonderful companies out there, and all these people are doing, sorry. There's good things happening out there. So I just want to say thank you. Again, as a region, we're trying to do the best that we can. We do want to bring in, there's no money on it, we had no capacity, everything was zero. So the 58 truck climbing lane, we're hoping to maybe work with District 9 to see what we can do there as an upcoming project. But the 46 project, it's been over 20 years. So I'm personally anxious to see that be completed, and I'm hoping that we're on our second version of the TCEP draft application, so we're trying to keep up with your changes to your guidelines. But all the information is there, all the good stuff's in it. We just want to make sure it tells the story as best as we can, and hopefully we can get that last piece out the door. So I think that concludes my presentation, so if there's any questions.
Thank you. Teresa, you have a question? No questions. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
I have a wonderful video of my 1-year-old granddaughter saying daddy, so I'm just saying, if you want to see it, let me know. Thank you very much.
It's all good. It's all good. Okay, we're going to queue Mark up. Looks like Mark's already queued up. So, Teresa.
Imperial County is not proposing any new projects except for the pre-PM in this programming cycle. They are proposing to leave unprogrammed share balances, possibly for a future project. Mark?
Yes, thank you. Teresa, and thank you so much for staff working with us on the use of our PPM funds. Those are desperately needed for us to keep our work moving on. I did want to highlight a couple of projects that the commission has helped us with, the trade corridor program, as well as our most recent past advancing of STIP funds. The Calexico East Port of Entry, if you look at the map, the far right of the screen, the red star is the Calexico East Port of Entry. So it's nearest. It is our only commercial crossing. It is our top freight border project, and that port of entry handles approximately $17 billion in trade to and from Mexico, and the delays for trucks and cars during peak periods are 2 to 3 hours. So you previously authorized us with $3 million to help us with our PAED. We're moving forward with that. We're actually wrapping up the PAED this coming May, if not sooner, and then we'll be working to authorize. But basically, if you look at the map, we're adding 4 lanes. 2 of those lanes will be for northbound trucks, and 2 of those lanes will be for northbound autos. We're just going to be doing all the work on one side of the bridge, and then doing some shifting of the lanes. So here's a summary of the funding that you had previously allowed us on the trade corridor program, $3 million. Our local funds, our Measure D funds, and then we did receive a $20 million build grant award. And we are able to complete that project or begin construction later this year with the funding that we do have available, but we will be coming back to ask for to help us with the deferred maintenance of that bridge as we move forward. Just a little timeline of where we've been and where we're moving forward to. As I mentioned, completing environmental in May, and then we'll be asking for obligation of the federal funds together with our local funds and beginning design build in February of 2021. So this is our top STIP project that you helped us advance. 42 million of that funding came from our STIP program, our STIP shares, and so we're just got a contract award through Caltrans as our partner. We are going to be breaking ground in mid-April, and so we'd love to have one of you commissioners to join us if that's possible. It will be before the summer hits and won't be too hot. It'll be nice weather. So
Send us the date, Mark, as soon as you have it.
Okay, will do. Mid-April. Just keep that in mind. So if you look at the map, the blue is the proposed interchange reconstruction. We do have an interchange today, but it does not have a southbound connection. So we have to tear down the bridge and reconstruct it, and as well as provide the southbound connection. Our local agency, the City of El Centro, is carrying out a roadway extension of Imperial Avenue, and that is through our local measure funds as well as some federal aid money. And so we're moving forward with that. The city's project as well as our project will be going to construction concurrently. This is the existing interchange that we have. This is the proposed diagram of the proposed interchange. And so with the completion of the project, it provides better southbound traffic circulation south of Interstate 8. It also provides pedestrian and bicycle access on that bridge, as well as providing some economic development and opportunities south of the interstate. With that, I just wanted to give you highlights of that. Thank you.
Okay, Teresa, you have questions? Okay.
Thanks.
Well, good. Thank you, Mark. Okay, now we're going to go to item 12, INYO. John, we'll cue you up, and Kevin, you're doing this one.
Inyo County can be found on page 15 of the hearing book. Inyo County has no target for this program. This is due to advancing their shares for the Alancha-Cortego 4-lane expressway project in partnership with Mono and Kern counties. Inyo is proposing to advance their shares to program 2 local road rehabilitation projects and to program their PPM. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Director Weiss, good afternoon. John Pinkney from the Inyo County Local Transportation Commission. I wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'll keep it fairly short. Our STIP funding requests are for construction on the US 395 corridor and design on State Route 14. These are both part of the High Desert, Eastern Sierra, Northern Nevada Strategic Interregional Corridor, and both are priority interregional highways, which we have fully supported through our regional MOUs, leveraging our regional and ITIP funds. We even fully funded with our STIP shares Kern's portion of the Freeman Gulch Phase 1 on SR 14, and have yet to fully realize the STIP shares we advanced for Kern on this. In this cycle, we are also requesting the PPM funds and plans, inspection, and engineering on a small bridge project and a street rehabilitation project. Our list is fairly short. Inyo County has unique funding issues. It's the second largest landmass county in the state of California, and unlike Orange County, we only have 18,500 people. 98% of our county is federally owned or state-owned or owned by the City of LA. We rely heavily on the STIP funding for improvements to our designated freight corridor and to improve the traffic safety for locals and tourists and freight movement. We have dedicated our STIP shares to Tri-County MOU projects since the MOU was originally signed in the 1990s. We are currently in a negative share balance due to our continuing commitment to these major Caltrans District 9 projects. Your commission recognized our commitment in the past, and we hope your commission will continue to support our ability to move forward some of our smaller projects. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay. Teresa,
Thank you, John. We probably will get back to you, and once the STIP is is adopted to go with the 3 counties to talk about the MOU and how it's everything going to be balanced along with Caltrans with Bruce. So we'll look to work with you to get a better understanding as to the advancements of shares and the projects that have been funded through the MOU.
I look forward to discussing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I think we're at public comments. Does everybody agree where we are?
Yes, I agree.
On the agenda. Okay, we do have some requests, and here's Will. We already talked, so we're good. Okay, that was on the project. Kyle.
I think we had the opportunity to address the comments earlier, and we continue to look forward to working with Teresa
Okay.
and the commission staff.
Okay. Tamika from Amtrak. Okay. Commissioner Burke would be very delighted that we have an Amtrak representative here.
Good, yep, it's afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Tamika Smith, and I am the Director for State Supported Services for Amtrak on the West Coast. And today I am here to speak in support of the Link US project. The Link US project it's been a long time coming, and it will help to support the Amtrak-operated Pacific Surfliner. The Pacific Surfliner is the second most busiest corridor outside of the Northeast Corridor. In FY19, we served over 2.7 million passengers. And with the success of this project, we look to shave 30 minutes off of the travel time. So again, and also it will benefit our Amtrak long distance that operates out of Union Station. So, and we also, are grateful for our partnership with LoSAN as well as Caltrans. So any questions you may have, or that's pretty much it. So
Well,
thank you for your time.
Thank you. I have a question just kind of related. So, Donna, did we miss, can you come on down to the podium? I got a little hint. Maybe you have you do? Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're just not used to seeing my name associated with LoSAN, yeah.
Yeah, so I had Sean before you, but yeah, what's up?
I'm excited to be at the LoSAN corridor.
Whoa, I missed that announcement. When that happened?
I'm officially 1 week on the job.
Whoa. I didn't read all my CTC news I was supposed to, or did we miss that announcement?
I'll send you a copy of the press releases from RTD and LoSAN.
Okay, well, yoo-hoo. There you go.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
So now you were going to say
Okay.
something, so we'll make that official.
Excellent, thank you. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Director, staff. I'm delighted to be here. I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to offer comment on the proposed STIP program related to the LINK project. For those of you who don't know, my name is Donna DiMartino. I am the new Managing Director of the LoSAN Rail Corridor Agency, which is the administrative and managing agency of the state-supported Pacific Surfliner Intercity Passenger Rail Service, which operates along the 351-mile Los Angeles, San Diego, San Luis Obispo, or LoSAN Rail Corridor. The LoSAN Rail Corridor spans a 6-county coastal region in Southern California and is the second busiest passenger rail corridor in the United States. The Pacific Surfliner carries more passengers than any other state-supported Amtrak route. There are 3 passenger rail services that operate along the LoSAN corridor, serving 41 stations with more than 150 daily passenger trains, with an annual ridership, as Tamika mentioned, of nearly 3 million on the Amtrak Surfliner, intercity trains, and 5 million on Metrolink and the coaster commuter routes. While I am new to the LoSAN agency, I'm not at all new to delivering critical transportation projects. I've seen, and I know you have as well, how strategic federal and state investments make a real difference in our communities, and how those investments in mass transit help provide essential transportation services to those who are relying on us to get to work, school, medical appointments, social activities, and even family outings. Now, I know that you've already discussed the merits of the project, but I want to share just a little bit about LoSAN's perspective of the merits of the project. So I am speaking in support of the Link Union Station project. I believe this is a project that can be advanced quickly and will deliver substantial benefit to the region by providing for additional train slots, which means more operating capacity. It will reduce emissions by reducing train idle times and continue to help address the need for more viable transportation options for our residents. The need for this project has been discussed for many years, and it is consistent with the goals of the State Rail Plan. The preliminary environmental and property acquisition work is already underway, which means the project will be poised to move forward expeditiously as funds are available. The completion of this project is important to the Lausanne corridor. Billions of dollars are being invested along the Lausanne corridor to increase the number of train trips available and to improve coordination between the different rail operators along the corridor. Link Union Station is a critical element of the planned improvements and for achieving the goals laid out in the California State Rail Plan. This project is expected to double the capacity of that station. Today, Union Station, as you've heard, is stub-ended, which requires trains enter the station to switch ends and then operate in reverse direction to leave. This switching of direction currently can take up to 30 minutes per train trip due to safety and operational procedures required. This has a huge impact, of course, on our cost and our productivity. We believe the Link Union Station project will help reduce train as well as passenger dwell time. It will increase our productivity and allow us to use our equipment most effectively. We believe this project will not only help us decrease dwell times and travel times, but also reduce overall operating cost. And I stuck to the script so I could stay within my 3 minutes. And I do want to thank you for the opportunity to express our support for this project and for your consider of the value and the impact of this important investment. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but it is a public comment, so.
Yes. Same thing. I think it is a great project. The merits of the project is the delivery that we are going to be working with Metro and Caltrans to make sure that the delivery is consistent with the STIP guidelines. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
I have just one question, Donna. Did I hear you properly that this doubles the capacity?
That's what we are anticipating. It will double the capacity of the station for the trains going through.
Of the entire station?
That's the information I have. And I've talked to our folks. It's something we talk about every day. Kyle will have a little bit more information on that. I've only been on the job a week, and I've already heard about the turnaround time troubles that we have at that station. So it's certainly something that's of concern. Am I correct, Kyle, doubling the capacity?
Well, then my next question is, why haven't we done it before? But I'll leave that question to the others. Teresa?
Madam Chair, I think we need a tour.
No, seriously, I mean, not to make light of it, but if we can double the capacity on a very critical node of our system, I would look in the mirror and say, why didn't we already get it done, kind of thing. If it's, nothing's ever that simple, I realize, so.
I understand this has been discussed for about 20 years, so it's been something that's been talked about and something that certainly Union Station and LA Metro have been working on advancing the project, and so I'm looking forward to a speedy delivery and that doubled capacity for us.
Okay. Are we good on that? Okay, I do have one more speaker request. Sean Paul from Amtrak. We have two Amtrak folks today.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Or I guess it's good afternoon now, Madam Chair and Director, ladies and gentlemen. Try to keep this as brief as possible. I'm here today to talk about PTC, particularly the run on the Coast Subdivision, Union Pacific Railroad. Safety is Amtrak's top priority. We're a leader in the PTC implementation. All Amtrak-owned or controlled track has PTC currently in effect. As of July 19th, more than 16,000 miles of host railroad controlled track has PTC. 86% of all track has operational PTC in the system. Currently on the Union Pacific Coast Sub, there's no PTC between Elmhurst and Newark and Gilroy and San Luis Obispo. Almost 200 miles of track. Implementing PTC will not only add to the safe operation, but it creates an opportunity to expand. The Capital Corridor has been looking at running on that Elmhurst line, and they could save 13 to 15 minutes right out of the gate. It would also reduce, we think, in third-party delays, being that that line has less road crossings at grade and also has less pedestrian traffic. The expansion would not be possible without the installation of PTC on that line. It would also affect our Coast Starlight route that runs from Seattle to LA. And frankly, it's a good idea. Any questions?
So you're saying that Union Pacific hasn't put PTC on that particular line?
That is
And
correct.
it's their responsibility? Or
They
where,
have
where
the-
do you all share the responsibility when you share a line?
Well, we share the line. Currently, we only operate one train on that line, one passenger train. So they have an FRA waiver to operate without PTC, as it is signaled.
Well, UP's not operating a passenger line, so who's operating the passenger? You are?
We are. Currently, we will operate one train.
And you operate with a waiver, is
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
But it would not be possible for the Capitol Quarter to operate.
You can't do more? Okay.
Correct.
I understand. Okay, well, our Class 1s have prided themselves in being leaders in PTC, so I'm sure Kyle can help us get more info on that. But it was my understanding that Amtrak was behind the Class 1s in the past, and it had to do with some funding. So you're telling us that you're 100% PTC in every line?
Every line that Amtrak owns, yes. Not all the host-operated lines, no.
Okay, so that's where it gets complicated.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any further public comments? If not, I think our work has finished. I saw Mike, our host, here earlier today. I don't know if he came to collect our rent for the day or what, but he seems to have left, but we thank the Corridor Authority for hosting us today in their boardroom. And anybody thinking that Teresa has a simple job, raise your hand. Just kidding. Okey doke. Thank you all. Meeting adjourned.